Hi, hey Russ here. Welcome back to my shop. Today I want to talk about my little mini workbench. Yesterday I was talking about the shelf overhead and got into a couple of little things about the workbench. And somebody asked me if I would do a full review. He'd like to know more about the workbench itself, the mini bench. So I thought I'd do a video that's exclusively showing you all the things I do with it and how I set it up and why. First off, how I made it. This is a piece of scrap that came from a large piece of plywood. It's very unusual. The whole plywood was 1 3/4 inches thick. And it was about 6 foot long. And the guy wanted to make a bench top out of it. But he only wanted that top to be 5 foot. So he cut this 11.5 inches off of it. And this was the width of it, about 30 inches. And he asked me if I wanted this little piece. Nice thick piece of plywood, very flat, very straight. It's got that press chipboard, like same thing they use for making furniture and cabinets. That's veneered. And this is veneered with 1/4 inch hardboard on both sides. And that gives it so it's about 1.25 inches thick on the press board. And it's got this laminated on both sides, this 1/4 inch hardboard. So it's a solid piece of wood and good and flat. So I decided I would make use of it. So I wrapped it in 3/4 inch pine to protect the edges and left it this size. I made my bench dogs 4 inches apart, just like I did on my workbench around the perimeter. Only here I made 3 columns of bench dogs, and they're 4 inches apart. And they're 4 inches apart this way. So they're exactly 90 degrees to each other, just like on an MFT table. And I can drop things in here. So if I drop a straight edge, if I drop 2 bench dogs in here and I set this against them, this is running parallel to my front and back edge. This is square. If I put them in this way, then I know I'm running 90 degrees to my front edge here exactly. Or if I use bench dogs here and I put my piece in, I know that I'm square here on all my bench dogs. So to me, it was important when I set it up that I had nice square and even distance between them. And after I got this all set up, I made it about 12 inches above my tabletop. And that was to give me enough room to be able to use things like F-clamps. Because I take my F-clamps and I've got them ground off on the end so that I can take my F-clamp apart, put this in the bottom, and put this back on it. And now I can put something in here and clamp it down quick and easy using the F-clamp if that's the way I want to clamp something down. So I had to have it this high in order for these to be able to slip in from the bottom. And you can actually put them in from either way if you really want to, but I just found most of the time, I just put them in from the bottom and have the crank up here to use. So I use the F-clamps big time for holding down. I use the bench dogs, and I use 3 different types of bench dogs. I use regular round bench dogs that are just perfectly round, and usually 4 inches to 6 inches long. I also use bench dogs, and everything's 3/4 inch because the hole is a 3/4 inch. But this has a notch cut out of the top, so you have this flat surface. That's so you can put it in here and set it down lower than the top of your surface, so you can use it for a stop, but go over the top of it like when you're planing. So this is a classic style bench dog that is out there too. And then the third type of bench dog I use is my bench anchors. Excuse me. And I talked about these in an earlier video also. But they have a top on them, so if I use them this way, they don't fall through when the dog hole's a little looser. I also have set screws in these, just like I do on my regular workbench, so that if I do have it kind of loose, I can very easily put it in here and then just snug up the set screw using the tool to hold my bench dog exactly where I want it then. And then when I'm done, I can just loosen it and take it back out. So the set screw helps me do what I want with a bench dog and hold it exactly where I want it and not have it move on me while I'm using it. So set screws are a handy addition to bench dogs. I also put some on the inside rows here, and those, as I showed you on the video where I drill, how to drill bench dog holes, at the end of that I showed you how to do the set screw and what they're for. So if I want, I can use this on an inside one, and since I have this set screw here, I can go in and lock this down using this. And then when I'm done, I can just loosen it up and take it back out. And that set screw, I just leave it right there most of the time. So I have set screws here as well as along here. So the set screws help a lot when you are doing using your bench dogs. Also, besides bench dogs themselves, I also use my T-track in my bench dog holes. And I did a video on T-track uses a while back. I think it was in May last year. But I took bench dogs and I have a bolt on it that goes through to a T-nut, and I can take and I put that onto my T-track and I can screw it down. I can put this anywhere I want along the T-track. So what I do is I line this up to my bench dog holes how I want it, and now I can snug it down and now I can use this on my bench as a stop. Or I can turn it this way and it fits because all my holes are exactly the same distance apart. And I know this track is parallel to this track right now. So my T-tracks are actually very handy to use also. These T-tracks also, I use them as stops on the edge. I store these two tracks right here. This one usually is over on my bench with my Legacy, but if I need it, I can go get it and bring it over here, use maybe the two short ones, because I have two that are about 15 inches long, and this one is 30. I basically had two of these, and I cut one in half. So now I can take these, and instead of having it up, I can actually take it out, turn it 180 degrees, and put it back on there, and now it's out of the way completely. So if I take them both, turn them 180 degrees, put them back in here, they're just stored away out of my way. I can still clamp something from the outer edge if I want. They don't interfere with that. So they make a pretty good T-track. And I actually could fasten something right to it on the side here while it's mounted here if I want to. But I've never really done anything, tie anything to the side and clamp from these T-clamps. But I guess anything's possible. I just set these up like this so they become stops on these two edges, which is extremely handy. Because now, if I take this and make it shoulder stop, like so, and I do it on both here and here, I now have a 90-degree stop here in two directions. So now I actually have a corner to put something in either way, and I know this will be a nice square corner. If I'm doing box building, which I do a lot of boxes and small drawers and such, and if I'm doing, let's say, a small box, once I glue it up and I know I want to make sure it's square, I can just quickly, I just put it up against here, make sure that I'm against the edge on both of these two stops, push it in place, and then I can gently pick it up, set it off to the side, let it dry, and it'll stay at that angle then, and it'll come out perfectly square every time just by quickly putting it in, pushing it into this corner. I can square it out, my box up. So this is really handy to have around when you're doing assembly work also. So if you want, I can put something on here so that I can saw it. And then I can saw, because I use the Japanese saw on a pull stroke, I can put it here and do that. So if I wanted to, I could put it over here and use my Western saw. Put this one down out of the way and use my Western saw this way up against here so that it holds it on the push stroke. So these are good for sawing also. I'm just figuring out different things to do with them as a stop. But I really like the idea that I can take and store them here without any problem, or turn them around and have them as a stop. So as it stands now, it stays out of my way, it doesn't get damaged from being there, and that stays stored. And when they're both in place, that holds this one so I don't have to worry about it coming off. So that's how that works. I have a jeweler vise back here that's just a handy vise to have on my bench. If I'm cutting down bolts with a hacksaw or something, then I use this. Or if I have to flatten out the end of something, I can use the anvil part to do that. I put an end vise on it, a face vise, here on the end of my bench, this way, so that it works in conjunction with my bench dog holes here as an end vise, as well as being able to use it as a face vise. Now this is just a small one. It's a 4.5 inch capacity, so it's not really a normal size one, but it works really well for my mini table. And I can put something on here and hold it tight enough if I need. If I want to do some specialized holding, then I just turn to my Zylis vise. I have talked about this before. Zyliss. It's like the Swiss Army knife of vices. And you can put it in so many different configurations to hold pieces in all different directions. And I can just bolt it down to my workbench in just about a minute and a half, and it's ready to use. So now I can take my piece of wood on my mini bench and put it in here and tighten it down, and now it's nice and tight here. Or I can put it in my vise this way to do joinery type work on it. So, and this will allow me to do joinery work. My bench is held in place by 2 bench dogs down here. I line it up to the bench dog holes on my workbench, and then I drop those in, and that holds it in place. Now, you could probably lift it up off the bench dogs if you worked at it, but it would be hard to do. Most of the time, my pressure is going left or right or down. If I have a problem with it holding still, I'll just throw 1 or 2 F-clamps on it, and that'll finish holding it down if I have to hold it down more sturdy than usual. But most of the time, this is how it's held in place. And I can actually move this bench anywhere around the perimeter of my regular workbench, because these holes will line up to any of my bench dogs around the perimeter, because I space those all out the same distance. So this thing will actually sit anywhere I want. It used to sit over there in that corner, and I moved it to here. And all I had to do was put the bench dogs back in it over here instead of having it over there. Simple, easy peasy. So, I think that's all there is about this. If you have any questions about why I did something, or what I have, or what is it you need explained a little further, let me know. And I'll try to explain it further. I think I explained everything about it. It's a great little bench. Very handy. With all the bench dog hole array with the set screws, it makes them really versatile to use the bench with the bench dog holes. And I do have the T-track if I need to go a little bit different. I have the different style vices I can use on here. For a little vise, a little table, it has a lot of different varieties that I can do with it. I like it a lot. And it is very handy. Anyway, that's how I work. That's how it works, and it works very well for me. If you have any questions about it, leave it in the comments, and I'll try to answer them. Or I'll do a follow-up video if I need to explain something, if it's very complicated. So, I want to thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to like this video. Most importantly, come back again, because, quite frankly, we're nowhere near done. We'll see you again very soon.